An NPS Arrowhead logo on a black background. Text on screen reads Brenda Zlamany, Artist in Residence, July 2024.
My name is Brenda Zlamany, and I am the July Artist in Residence at Glacier National Park.
A woman in a black shirt and pink sweater with long, dark, curly hair stands in a log cabin in front of a window, next to a table covered in watercolor portraits.
I'm here to work on a project called Climate in America. It's a project that, it's an itinerant portraitist project that is taking place all over America. This is my fourth stop. I started in Key West after the hurricanes, and then I was in California working after the fires, and then I was at Denali National Park while polychrome was still open, exploring the melting permafrost and how that was affecting the park. And now I'm here at Glacier. So the Itinerant Portraitist is a project that I began in 2011. It started with the Fulbright in Taiwan. In that project, I painted 888 Taiwanese Aboriginal people.
A series of watercolor portraits of Taiwanese people. The first is a man with glasses wearing a tan jumper with decorative labels, followed by a woman with chin-length hair and a striped shirt looking off to the side. Then a man with his black shirt partially taken off to show his decorative tattoos on his shoulder. Then a woman with a bob and a white collared shirt holding fruit.
And had an exhibition in the museum in Taiwan and at TECO, New York, which is Taiwan's de facto embassy. And when I did that project, I discovered that actually portraiture had a way of connecting people and dealing with issues that was surprising to me and really pleasing. That the project was as much about portraiture as it was about uncovering the issues and bringing people together and creating community. So after I did the project in Taiwan, I started an ongoing multi-year project called the Itinerant Portraitist that's been going on for a decade now. It's taken me all over the world, to Saudi Arabia to paint women, to...
A series of watercolor portraits. The first is a woman wearing a black shirt and a black headscarf with an official badge hanging from her top, followed by a woman wearing a full black robe with a head and face covering with dark glasses, with decorative blue and red cuffs at her wrists peeking out of the robe.
Bratislava to paint Yugoslavian refugees, to a nursing home in the Bronx to paint people who were nearing 100.
Next is a portrait of an elderly white woman with short white hair and a black and white checked jacket, followed by an elderly black woman wearing a blue headscarf and glasses looking up and to the side, then an older person with an oxygen tube wearing a green sweater and sitting slightly hunched over.
And each project has an issue that is being dealt with. This project now, Climate in America, it was begun before COVID, and then it was stopped because travel stopped, and now it's being continued. And in this project, I'm traveling all over the country and seeing how people are being affected by changing climate. I don't go in with an agenda, I just listen to stories and hear what people are experiencing. So in Glacier, there are 26 remaining glaciers, and I'm doing 26 portraits. Each one represents a glacier. I'm really interested in people's relationship to the land. I'm interested in, it's funny because this is a park residency and most people would be interested in painting the landscape. And I'm not really that interested in the landscape. I'm interested in the people who make the landscape available to us and working in the landscape.
Pan across the tabletop in the cabin full of more than a dozen portraits. Some people are in their uniforms with park hats on, others are in plain clothes or work uniforms.
What I love about doing this project is it's very social. Each painting represents a relationship.
A young woman in park uniform with shoulder-length brown hair sits across from Brenda, who has her paint box and easel set up in front of her and is adjusting a metal device attached to it.
And a conversation. Each person, people are allowed to talk when I paint, and they're encouraged to talk, actually.
A finished watercolor portrait of the same young woman we just saw. A time-lapse from the side of Brenda on the left painting a portrait of a middle-aged woman on the right in park uniform with long dark hair. They converse and smile and laugh while Brenda paints her portrait.
And the conversations inform the paintings. I'm not trying to get a photographic likeness because I don't actually think photography is true. I actually think the way you see people is a composite of many different expressions, and by having them talk and reveal themselves to me as I paint them.
Finished portrait of the woman with her long dark hair over one shoulder and a lanyard with decorative beadwork.
I'm creating an image that is a moving image in my head that is the true image of how I see them.
A man in park uniform sits in front of Brenda outside while she paints his portrait, and he smiles and laughs. Finished portrait of the man in his uniform and baseball cap.
Maybe it's not how they think they look, but it's how I see them. So when I look at these portraits, what I see is a relationship, a friendship. These are connections and bonds.
Brenda and a young man with long auburn hair and glasses are sitting outside a cabin while she finishes his portrait. Finished portrait of the same young man wearing a gray Park Service shirt, glasses, and earrings.
And I've probably done over 3,000 portraits with the Itinerant Portraitist, so these paintings are actually joining a group of portraits. All of the portraits are being kept together as a single group, a time capsule, and everybody is connected through having passed through me and sort of out my brush onto the page. So I think of it as a community and a way to explore issues, and possibly as a way of making the public aware of issues, because when these works are shown, they're often shown with films, and the content that was explored in the portraits is presented along with the paintings. The paintings, I like it when the paintings turn out well, but these paintings occur in the moment, and they're more about the experience than the actual concept of getting a product. Like, my oil paintings take a year.
An incredibly detailed and photorealistic oil painting of a black man wearing a black button-down jacket and black pants with a black bowler hat sitting on an antique wooden chair in front of a black backdrop. Text on screen reads Portrait number 84, Leonardo, 2005. Oil on panel 66 by 44 inches.
And these are only done in the moment, sitting down with the person, and they are not touched up. They are what happens in that moment. I'm forced to see and see quickly, and to capture that moment, because there's no going back. And watercolor is an unforgiving medium. And it works best when it is fresh. So, you try to see the essential lines of what makes a face work. And all of these people are fascinating people. This is Larry, who works in the booth, who worked for the IRS, and everybody here has a story and has a reason that they ended up in the park. It's diverse reasons. People have it's a wide variety of ages and different life journeys that bring them here, but they're all here with a love and respect of nature that and a desire to present it to the public in a way that is safe and appreciated and protected.
Brenda now stands in front of a stone fireplace next to an easel with a painted self-portrait of her in front of a lake and mountains.
So my side project, so to speak, is a series of self-portraits in the landscape. So I'm doing 11 of them. I will not finish any of them here. They're on panel, but I will get all 11 started. This one is in my backyard at night. And they're not finished. Here is...
She places another self-portrait on the easel of herself wearing a baseball cap and sunglasses with blue sky and clouds behind her.
Backyard at daytime. This one is avalanche.
She reaches over and puts another self-portrait on the easel. This one more of a work in progress, of herself in front of a green and white hill with lines of the landscape and trees barely sketched in.
Getting started. Let me just put this over here so I can move a few over. You don't need to see all of them, and this one I'm just starting today. It's from my hike at Iceberg.
She replaces that painting with a different self-portrait. This one of herself wearing glasses with a snowy lake behind, with steep cliffs in the background.
So the reason I'm doing these is, well, the way I start them is I do the watercolors of the landscape that I'm interested in my notebook. So this is...
She flips through a wide sketchbook of watercolor landscape studies, one with a small cabin in front of large mountains, another of a lake, then closes the sketchbook.
The Belly River, and this is the backyard. You can see this is the mountain. This is the kind of color I was seeing, and the kind of sky. And the reason this is the challenging project is because as a city person, I never look at landscape because we just simply don't have much landscape, especially in my section of Brooklyn, which is really industrial. And so I'm really grateful to the park for inviting me to be in the landscape, although I am not interested in being a landscape artist, and I actually don't think Glacier needs another landscape. I think it's been done. But I was thinking about the Mona Lisa and the way the landscape... I'm a portraitist, and I think about the Mona Lisa, what makes it so great, and the way the landscape informs her smile, the way that mountain is coming down into her face, and that squiggly road actually gives a sort of humor. Like, actually, you could say the landscape is creating the psychological moment if you took the figure out of the landscape. So this is the first time I'm really deeply exploring portraiture in the landscape using myself as the subject. So this is actually, this is my risky project, my challenging project, but it's actually like, I'm 5 paintings started into it, and I'm really understanding how it works, and this is like a hugely exciting thing for me to have come across this possibility of landscape, and there are so many ways of dividing the rectangles and, you know, glaciers, mountains, streams, everything, and to try to figure out, like, where does that ice cut that nose, what's going on here.
Brenda talks animatedly with her hands, gesturing to the sharp angles of the landscape on the cliffs in the painting.
What is it going to make this figure think? It's just, yeah, it's a wildly exciting thing. What is the, you know, how do these lines inform the face?
Brenda picks up the previous painting and gestures to the angles and lines in the background of that portrait.
So this is my challenging project that I started here that I would not ever have done anywhere else. And Glacier, this is like, Itinerant Portraitist has been great, but this is kind of the surprising gift that I'm taking home with me, is that I am excited about putting the figure into the landscape so that the landscape can inform the figure, because in the end, that's what it does. And yeah, so I'm grateful for that.
Text on screen reads, "To learn more about Glacier's Artist in Residence program, visit www.nps.gov/glac/getinvolved/air.htm."